I think I may have found something a little important to Tears of the Kingdom. Something not too many people are talking about, and maybe it's because it's relatively common knowledge at this point, or maybe it's because it's not been looked into very much by the big boys of Zelda theorizing. There is something that is really eating me up about the entirety of the storyline of Tears of the Kingdom, and that is that it's pointless. It exists within its own little bubble for a reason, and it isn't even relevant to the story of Breath of the Wild. At first, I was convinced that this game would be the end of the timeline, or the beginning of a new timeline loop. But now I see things a lot more clearly, and I was clearly not ready for this. The whole of the storyline of Tears of the Kingdom is utterly pointless, and today I'm going to explain why.
Hey, listen!
The whole of the game, the entire storyline, is a paradox. A paradox is a statement, or in this case a series of events that are almost impossible to comprehend because they are made up of two polar opposite facts or characteristics. The most famous of these is without a doubt the grandfather paradox, which is best explained in Back to the Future. In this film, Marty McFly travels back in time only to interfere with his parents ever meeting. This in turn means that McFly should no longer exist, but he does, and therefore the paradox is opened. There are absolutely countless types of paradox ranging from every subject, but the two that we need to look at today are this one and the bootstrap paradox. There isn't a massive amount of difference between these two, and it took some serious research to understand which is which, but essentially a bootstrap paradox creates something via time travel. Like for instance when Linky here whips out his ocarina for Guru Guru in the windmill. God, that sounded so wrong. As an adult, Guru Guru gets agitated and teaches Link the Song of Storms. Yet you go back as a child and he doesn't know the song because a child taught it him. And that child was you. You don't know the Song of Storms before Guru Guru teaches it to you, but he doesn't know the song unless you teach it to him. That is a bootstrap paradox. A grandfather paradox typically destroys something, or changes something that affects existence in general. In Zelda terms, there hasn't really been one of these, so to speak. Not until now. So, we know all about these two paradox types, but how exactly does that connect to Zelda and Tears of the Kingdom specifically? It would be crazy, first of all, to chalk all of Tears of the Kingdom down to just one of these temporal events. There are multiple events across this one game that need talking about, and while I think they could be a part of the same paradox, I really don't think they are. I think they are separate events entirely. First of all, we've got this little gem here. In this cutscene, Sonia explains to Zelda that she is a relation, albeit distant, of Raru's and Sonia's. This means that Zelda, somewhere down the line, is part Zonai, but we are going way back in time, maybe as far as 20 or 30,000 years, and all of the Zonai has clearly been bred out of the Hylian. It could even be argued that perhaps the Hylians as a result all indirectly come from Zonai, though this seems very unlikely given that the guards here are quite obviously human and not goats. However, the issue here is pretty large as we don't see any of the Zonai children that Zelda must be a descendant of to receive her time and light powers akin to Raru and Sonia. We know that she is a descendant, but it's never made clear how, because Ganondorf makes it painfully clear that he knows that Raru and Minoru are the last two Zonai in existence. So if these two are the last Zonai in existence, then how the hell did Sonia and Raru have children when Raru gets sealed in stone and Sonia gets sucker punched to death? They are no longer in existence to be able to have children, and therefore without these two being alive to have children, Zelda can't exist. Ergo, we have ourselves a classic grandfather paradox. We also have a perfect opportunity to ask all of you who haven't so far to subscribe to the channel. The growth that this channel has had in recent weeks has been astounding, and I cannot thank you all enough. Liking doesn't go amiss either, and most importantly, jump down in the comments below and let me know how you propose we solve these inconsistencies. There could be an argument to say that maybe the kiddies are up in the sky still, but with the Sky Islands falling around us, and Raru and Sonia seeming to make a life for themselves on the surface, this seems pretty hard to palate. That two parents would send their prodigy, a child born of both time and light, away from them. They didn't even have enough time to prep for this either, as Ganondorf's assault on the secret stones happened suddenly. So sending them up into the air when the danger is imminent just doesn't seem doable. So what's the effect of the children of Raru and Sonia not being present? Well, it's all pretty significant. If hybrid babies of Sonia and Raru aren't in the game and don't exist, it means that Zelda can't exist. This is because Raru and Sonia both make it painfully clear that she is a member of their lineage, and carries both time and light magic as per Sonia and Raru. The ancient heroes aspect has absolutely nothing to do with the lineage, which means quite literally that we have no one that could have passed down the genes from the family line, so to speak. No Zelda means no stopping the evil that is Ganondorf, but it also means no Ganondorf reawakening to begin with. No Ganondorf reawakening to begin with simply means no Tears of the Kingdom. So my biggest challenge with the game and why Nintendo have made an impossible challenge for us to solve is actually the very start. Skipping ahead through Zelda getting excited about the drawings on the walls to the point where we find the sealed Ganondorf and he attacks with his gloom streams. At this point, the underneath of Hyrule Castle seems to suffer a bit of a tectonic shift, with Ganondorf being lowered into the ground on his evil pedestal, the rest of the ground around Hyrule Castle collapsing apart from a pillar that the entire building can sit upon. This causes the ground around Zelda's feet to crumble and she falls into an abyss. Link jumps in to try to rescue her but misses by literally a fingertip before a new light envelops Zelda, and she is transported via her newly acquired secret stone to the distant past. This on its own as an isolated idea is fine. No issues here at all for the Tears of the Kingdom development team. We're all good. During her time in this world, she looks to work on her powers. She learns to harness them using the guidance from Queen Sonia and Minoru. She raises her confidence by plus 10 points, and goes from confused and meek to calling out doppelgangers and hatching plans to solve things tens of thousands of years in the future. She becomes a leader, a queen, but of a past where the Zonai end up being a relative memory in the pages of history. When you find Minoru in the game hiding away in the construct factory, she tells us all about the imprisoning war. The war that sealed Ganondorf underneath the castle for good. We presumably see her memories as she's explaining it to Link, and quite clearly we have a whole group of sages ready for war here against the big bad boss. During the battle, all of the sages are fallen. They're not dead, they're just beaten up. And that includes Zelda, who then suddenly gets a brainwave. She and Rauru put together some form of neurologic link, and Zelda then goes on to fire an absolute barrage of items at Ganondorf. Ganondorf stops all of them, but Rauru rushes forward and gives the King of Evil a much unwanted implant of a Stone of Light. The light counters the darkness, Rauru turns to stone, and Ganondorf is sealed with the energy created by this action for generations to come. So what issues could that present? Zelda comes from the future to change the past. A classic bootstrap paradox, and here's why. Zelda gets sent back to the past by Rauru and his secret stone. She is trained by Rauru, Minoru and Sonia to harness her powers. Finally, because it's only taken so far roughly 127 years for her to be able to obtain her powers. We need to come back on this one eventually too, because just how on earth she maintains her youthful appearance for this amount of time is just absurd. But I can get it for the duration of time between Rauru's era and the current present in the game, as she's a dragon for that duration of the game. But the time period where Link goes for a 100-year nap just makes no sense to me. So she obtains her powers, she becomes able to help within the fight, and she has the most pivotal action within this battle. Without her distraction, Rauru can't get close enough to Ganondorf to seal the evil. He can't sacrifice himself without it being for nothing. By Zelda's action, Ganondorf is sealed under Hyrule Castle. Without Ganondorf ever being sealed, Link and Zelda never go underground to begin with. The gloom never exists, Ganondorf never starts the upheaval. The entire events of the start of the game are completely null and void, which then means Zelda never goes back into the past. Without Zelda going back into the past, Ganondorf wins and defeats the sages, and Rauru's chances of sealing the villain completely disappear. As a result of the two never going underground, the Master Sword never breaks. Zelda never has either the means to or the need to become a dragon. None of the events in this game happen at all without this moment in time existing, and this moment of time only exists because Zelda gets flung back to the past to have her help with the sealing of the evil one. So we're stuck in this loop as a result. Zelda needs to go back to the past to help stop Ganondorf and play her role. Rauru needs to seal Ganondorf so that he can remain under the castle forever. Zelda needs to change the future by going back to the past to enable all of this to happen. If she never does, then none of the events of Tears of the Kingdom can occur, and the effects of her not going to the past are dire enough to potentially cause a whole new split in the timeline. I really wish there was a solution to both issues presented by myself here, but there really isn't. Paradoxes are renowned for being unsolvable, and while I'd love to think I have a solution for either of these issues, the more I've looked at it, the more of a plot hole it seems to become. Looking at the child issue first, because Nintendo are not looking at producing any DLC for the game, we're stuck where we are. There is no opportunity for Rauru and Sonia to have children. The only common argument here is that Rauru and Sonia had children together many years before Zelda gets transported back to their era. The children could for some reason live up in the sky, and none of them fall along with the Sky Islands. This would mean that there has to be more than one Sky Island still left above the cloud barrier. There has been no reference to there being more up there, but it is a possibility. Remember, just because it's not expressly mentioned that there are no more Sky Islands, it doesn't mean that there aren't anymore. We hid an entire civilization up here, so I'd like to think that more than just this smattering of islands exist, but there's no substantial proof, just wishful thinking. So this leaves the idea that Sonia and Rauru had a secret baby. With just the two Zonai left remaining, Minoru and Rauru, it could have been seen as important for the lineage of the Zonai to continue, to conceal the baby. Not a single soul could have known about them, other than the two or possibly three of them, in order to help preserve the bloodline. The baby would have been raised somewhere separately to the royal family. somewhere else in the lands of Hyrule. This would clear up Ganondorf's understanding of there only being 2 Zonai left on the planet. This one remaining descendant would be able to grow, would be able to marry and have children of her own. She would have children with Hylians, and eventually the Zonai traits would be phased out of the evolutionary line due to this interspecies breeding. The powers of Hylia, notably the more dominant side, as Sonia explains, due to Zelda's stone focusing on her time powers, passed down, sometimes laying completely dormant and other times being a complete aid for the princess of those current eras. Though this all feels like a hell of a stretch, this would solve this paradox to some degree. The second paradox we've got way more of an issue with though. In essence, Zelda has to travel back to the past in order for anything to happen in the future, and there's no solution to this without a second timeline opening up. A second timeline would be so interesting though, and we could potentially see things like the return of the Dark World. Not like the depths where we have a mirror image world of the above, but an actual timeline where the world is completely plunged into evil. Similar to how it works in Ocarina of Time when Ganondorf gets his hands on the Triforce. But according to IG Aonuma, we are completely done with this world entirely. There is likely never to be an answer to these paradoxical problems, and this is the issue. The holes these time travel issues create are almost too big to overlook, as they create massive plot holes. And that's why I'm not very happy with you, Nintendo. You can leave things out of your games all you want, but not when it comes to major plot points like the entire plot of the game. And with that, we're all wrapped up. But before you go, please don't forget to subscribe, like and leave a comment. I really appreciate every interaction with you guys in this little community. I'll see you next time. Bye!